Hey friends, this is Christopher Davis-Shannon, and this week I'm going to show you how to play a solo arrangement of the wonderful Mills Brothers tune, Smoke Rings. This was written back in 1933 by Eugene Gifford, along with lyrics by Ned Washington, who also wrote such wonderful songs as When You Wish Upon a Star. This is arranged in AABA format with a B section that actually harmonically really mimics the A section. So there's not a whole lot going on in here, as we have quite a bit of repetition, which means we can focus a little bit on technique. I've arranged this entire piece to be strummed only with the thumb, and what I've tried to do is give a nod back to the wonderful tight harmonies that the Mills Brothers had. If you'd like, you can skip right to the end where there was a play-along video with the tabs attached, but I'm going to walk you through each and every little section in the next few segments. Let's get going. Now, for those of you not familiar with the great Mills Brothers, they were a vocal quartet that existed in the 30s and 40s for the most part, that played a lot of these standard tunes, but had such a beautiful sense of harmony. As I said before, I want to try to capture that on the uke. Along with that, this little A section starts out with a nod back to the intro that they would use. They would always have a tenor guitar along with them, whether they were playing with an orchestra or solo. That would sometimes be, just their only accompaniment instrument, and many of their tunes have a very nice short tenor guitar intro that is generally single notes. So what I've done here is I've arranged that little bit, which is the first bit of the melody, as a campanella style piece for uke. So what we're going to do for these first couple bars is we're going to put down an F major chord, but this is not going to be one that you're familiar with. What I want you to finger from the start is put your middle finger on the 5th fret of your G string. This is a C. You're going to leave the C string open. Your first finger is going to go on the 4th fret of the E string. Now this is a G sharp, and we're not going to need this till we get to the second measure, but we want to start off with this down, so we don't need to make any unnecessary movements as we go through the piece. So we'll hear a chord that sounds not too pretty when we strum it, but as we put these individual notes in, it's going to sound a lot better. So we're going to go back and forth between an A, which is our open A string, and the C on the 5th fret of our G string, and we're going to let these sustain. So our first little measure is going to sound something like this, and we'll hear this repeated as the main theme throughout the entire tune. So you can hear the key to this is that we want to allow those notes to ring out, so that we don't just have. We want to let this ring out to give the illusion of a tenor guitar, a steel string instrument which would have much more sustain than a uke. After this, we're going to a C7 sharp 5. This second measure is probably one of the hardest ones in the entire piece. We're going to start off with that first finger that's already down on the G sharp. So we'll strike our E string and then back to the C on the 5th fret of our G string. And then we're going to shift all the way up. Move your middle finger up to the 7th fret of the G string, and your ring finger is now going to capture the 7th fret, the E, on your A string. And then you're going to resolve down to a C, which will be under the pinky on the C string. So our first couple measures are going to sound a little bit something like this. All right, now the key here is to allow all of these notes to ring out independently, and not to really think of them as individual notes, but the fact that we're really creating harmony with these individual notes ringing together. Directly after we play the C, then we're going to start the chordal accompaniment, and we're going to start this with an F major 7th chord, but we're going to finger this as 5, 5, open, open, which are the same notes as the F major 7th chord that you're probably familiar with down here, but gives a little bit more foreboding of a sound. And this is my cat Charlie behind me, who will now be joining in on the lesson. As we strum through this, this is where we can really start to have our thumb interplay with the notes. So you'll see that we have a little squiggly line next to this first strum, which just means that we're going to strum it a bit more forcefully and slower, creating an arpeggio so that we can hear each and every individual note to accentuate this chord change. And we're going to strum that 3 more times after that first strum, but nice and light. We always want to think of these non-melody notes as accompaniment, and we need to let the melody shine through. In this case, the melody is this A right here. So as we strum through, we're going to let that really ring out. And after we strum this 4 times, we're going to slide on down and make sure that your hand motion here is much like mine. You're coming off 5, 5, open, open. As we slide down to an F7th chord, 2, 3, 1, open. Two fingers are maintaining contact with the same strings, and we're putting down the first finger. And we're going to strum this twice, and then we're going to walk up the chord a little bit. We're going to add our pinky to the C on the 3rd fret of our A string, and then we're going to make this on the last beat an F7 sharp 5, which means we're going to bring that C up to a C sharp on the 4th fret. So here are F major 7th and F7th bars together, and pay close attention to how I accentuate certain notes and others are treated as solely accompaniment. So we can accentuate that movement as well. Now, our next measure, we're going to a B flat major 7th chord, which will be 3, 2, 1, open. You've probably played this before. And this is where we can start to talk about one of the joys of using just our thumb to pluck things, which is that we get quite a bit more control over our partial strums than we do with coming down with the index finger. As we're coming through just with the thumb, we really have the ability to only hit these bottom 2 strings. This D on the 2nd fret of our C string is our melody note. And as we strum through this, we're going to follow through, and then immediately on the next half beat, go to the E string, the 1st fret, that F right there, and come back to the D, and then follow through. Another one of those nice arpeggiated strums just on our B flat major 7th chord. We don't have to change anything. And then we're going to hit it one more time and just pluck the D on the 2nd fret of our C string on the last half beat. So this measure, which we will see coming up recurrently, sounds a little bit something like this. All right, and then we move on to a B flat minor 6th chord, and this is a very common change, but right here we don't actually have to finger the entire chord. All we're going to do is we're going to put our first finger on the 1st fret, this D flat on our C string, because that's all we really need. We just played this D and we're going to walk down to D flat, and then we're going back to this sort of campanella style, letting these notes ring out. We're going to play the D flat, then G, then A, and then come down, and we're going to play a C major chord, but this is really a C5 chord. We don't have a 3rd in here. We're only playing Gs and Cs. So we'll put down our ring finger on the 3rd fret of our E string, which will double our open G string. But that's our melody note, so we really want to hear that. We'll strum that twice, and then resolve to an F on the 1st fret. So let me play the B flat major 7th and the B flat minor 6th to C bars, so you can hear how these two go together, and then we'll work on that little turnaround coming up. And as we get to this F, what we're going to do is just walk a little bass line. We're going to play the roots of the notes on one beat and then strum the chord, much like the Mills Brothers would do with a bass voice. So we'll put down an F major chord, 2, open, 1, 3, and we'll pluck the F on the 1st fret and then strum. Then put down your ring finger on the 2nd fret of the C string on that D, making this a D minor 7th chord. Do the same thing, pluck that D, and then we're going to pluck an open G string to strum a G minor 7th, 2, 1, 1, and then go up to a C, and we'll make it a C7th by adding the B flat on the 3rd fret of our G string. So let's hear these next 2 bars together, 7 and 8. This is our turnaround, which gets us back to the top of the 4. You've probably heard a similar sound to this. This is our 1-6-2-5 progression that we use so frequently. Now, if we look at measure 9, what we're doing here is echoing the melody that we had at the top, but we're now not going to do it in the campanella style, but we're going to strum through these chords. And again, all of this entire piece we executed with just the thumb. So we're going to play our root position F major chord, 2, open, 1, open. And then every other beat, we're going to add on the C, the 3rd fret of our A string. So it'll sound like this. Let me play that one more time for you nice and slow so you can hear where these individual notes are. And you hear that on the offbeats, we are only strumming the A string so that we really accentuate the melody. The key here is to let the melody speak for itself. And then we're going to go down now to a C7 with a sharp 5. We're going to do this as a bar chord. So bar across your 3rd fret, and then we're going to place the middle finger on the E on the 4th fret of our C string, and the ring finger directly next to it on that G sharp that we played earlier on the E string. Now as we strum through this, you'll see this is another one of these partial strums that immediately leads us going to the next string. Again, this is about control of the partial strums. So we'll strum through the first, on the first beat, we're strumming through the first 3 strings, and then you can rest on that A string and just play it. So that's our first beat. And then we're just gonna put the pinky down on the D on the 5th fret of our A string and pluck that note individually. And then we're going to go up to a different C7th voicing. And you'll note in some versions of this tune, this is actually an A7th sharp 5 here, but because of the voicing that yields on uke in this position, I thought I'd like to capture a little bit more sustain by making this a C7th really with a sus4 in there, which is going to be open, open, 6, 8. So we have this F up top, which is our 4th, but we're gonna resolve that down, so that's okay. So we'll strum that chord twice. And resolve to a D minor 7th, which is just barring straight across the 5th fret. And much like with our F major 7th that we did earlier, we'll accentuate this first chord and then some nice light strums after it. And then a D minor 11th chord, which is open, 2, 1, open. So let me play this whole line for you, and you'll hear that this melody is very similar to what we did over top. And now we go back to our B flat major 7th chord, which we've done already. This is the same exact measure that we played in 5 and then in 6 on the B flat minor 6th to the C7th chord. Our turnaround, you'll see, is just a little bit different here. At the end of the verse, we have our F major, and then we're going to play G minor 7th, open, 2, 1, 1. And we'll add that C on the 3rd fret of our A string on the 2nd strum, and then back to F, and then C7, 3, open, open, 3, down to a C7 sharp 5, 1, open, open, 1. So let me play this last line of the first A section for you so you can hear how this all fits together. Now, as soon as we go on to this next A section, it's identical except for the beginning. These first 2 measures are just a little bit different because we're not doing that campanella style. This is not the intro anymore. We're into the actual tune. So we're going to start off with the strum that we did over the F major. Same as we did previously. And the only difference here is when we go to the C7 with a sharp 5, instead of going up to the 5th fret on beat 2, we're going to grab our pinky on the 7th fret, and then we're going to come down to the 5th fret, and then pluck the 3rd fret, and come down to the F major. So let me play just bar 18 for you, because this is a minor difference from what we did above, because we are now resolving to an F as opposed to a D minor. So we're staying on that C7 sharp 5 the whole time. So this little measure is going to sound like this. Resolve to just our regular old F major chord. And again, we're going to add in a little bass line here. We're just going to walk up to that F7. So we're going to strum 2 on the F, and then we're going to pluck the D on the 2nd fret of our C string on beat 3, strum through that chord. Now this isn't really a D minor. This is just a passing tone in the bass. Coming up to what we do in measure 20 on beat 1, we pluck an E flat, making this again an F7th, and then we strum up doing with the C, and then the C sharp for an F7 sharp 5 like we did before. So here's our little turnaround here. So these little bass movements we can do on uke really help us propel the momentum of the song along. Now, if we look through this, the rest of the A section is identical to what we've gone over. So let's hop on over to the B section and see what's different there. The B section of this tune, as I mentioned earlier, is harmonically very similar to what we do in the A section, although not quite identical. And that might serve to trip you up even more so than if it was a tougher harmonic progression or chords that we had in here, because it is so similar, but the melody is different. So we're starting out again on an F major chord, 2, open, 1, 3. But what we're going to do is we're going to pluck the melody, as it always hits on 1 and 3 for these first couple measures. So we're going to pluck the A string and then strum through the F chord. Then pluck the G string, strum through the F chord, and then up to our favorite chord, the C7 sharp, 5, 3, 4, 4, 3. And we're just going to pluck that G sharp on the 4th fret of our E string on beat 1. And then we're going to walk up just like we did previously. Put the pinky down on the 5th fret, and then up to that C7th voicing we used earlier, open, open, 6, 8. So let me play just these first 2 measures for you so you can hear how this all lines up. And then we'll resolve to that F major 7th chord that we used at the beginning of the song, 5, 5, open, open. And we're going to strum through this and then go to an F7th, but we're going to use a variation here. We're going to do this in kind of the same position we're already in. So it'd be 5, 3, 5, open. So we're coming from F major 7th, then put down the F7th. Now, if you recall, in the A section, we go to a B flat major 7th here, but in the bridge section, we're going to go to a B flat 6th chord, which is 1 note difference. Instead of having that open A string up top, we're going to add the 6th, which is a G, our open G string, and we're going to pluck this on beat 1. So our B flat 6th chord is the same as our G minor 7th, open 2, 1, 1. So we have G, strum, pluck the E string, strum, and then we're just going to lift up that partial bar that we have and pluck the A string on beat 1. And then strum through that chord and then go to a big old C major chord, to our C7th with the B flat on the G string, and we'll resolve that to an F major chord. So let me play just those 2 bars for you so you can hear it. As we strum this, we're going to do another bass line here, but we're going to walk down this time. So we're going to go, as we strum our F major chord, then pluck our open E to the E flat on the 3rd fret of our C string, to the 2nd fret, our D, and then we're going to go to a C, and we're now going to make this a C7th chord and go right up. So we'll go C string, E string, G string, strum a B flat chord, or you could just play the B flat by itself. Either really works. So as we come through this little bass line section will sound like this. And then we go back to what we just did, the same exact thing. The F with plucking the A string first, strum through, pluck the G string, strum through, to the C7 sharp 5. But now, much like in the verse, we're going to go to a D minor 7th this time, so the voicing's going to change just a little bit. So we're going to hit the G sharp on the 4th fret, strum the 3rd fret twice, and then go up to that pesky C7th chord with the sus4, open, open, 6, 8. And then just strum through D minor 7th across the 5th fret. And then we're going to walk it down with diminished chords. So we're going to go D minor 7th, then we're going to go to an E diminished chord, so 3, 4, 3, 4. And then we're just going to lift up these 2 fingers, play a C minor 7th, and then go down to a D diminished chord, 1, 2, 1, 2. So here's from the D minor 7th. We just have a little walk down since there's nothing happening melodically here. And then we're ending up on the D minor 11th chord that we played earlier. Open, 2, 1, open. And we'll strum that twice. And then pluck the F on the 1st fret of our E string. And then we're going to add the C on the 3rd fret of our A string. So here's our D minor 11th bar. we're going to everyone's favorite chord in the world, C6. Strum everything open here. Strum it twice and then do open E, open G, and then we're going to do our little 1-6-2-5 with the bass line thrown in that we did earlier. Pluck the F and strum and D minor and strum and G and strum and C. So I play just that last line of the bridge section so y'all can hear it. Now let's look at this last little A section and the minor differences between that and what we've already gone over. Now the A section, as we might think, is pretty much a repetition of what we did in the beginning of the tune. In fact, the second A section that we went over, which was all strumming. It's exactly like that until we get to our D minor 11th chord, and then there's just a little bit of a tag at the end that we can use to end this tune. So at measure 60, we're going to strum our D minor 11th twice, open, 2, 1, open. And then we're going to pluck our G string and pluck the E string with the first finger down, so it's an F, so it's going to sound like this. And then that next lick, we've heard that. That's our B flat major 7th lick. We're going to play that same exact thing that we played earlier, that 2-bar section. But instead of resolving to an F this time, we're going to use a very common trick that the Mills brothers used quite a bit, which is resolving to our 4 chord and then coming down to a minor 4 chord, our B flat minor 6th, before resolving to the end. We're just going to pluck these. So as we come off this C major chord, we'll put down B flat 6th and we're going to pluck through it. So we're going to go C string, E string, G string, A string. So we're going up the chord and then come down to a B flat minor 6, which is open, 1, 1, 1. And we're going to just pluck all the way up through this from the C string. So C, E, A, and then the D flat on the 4th fret of our A string. That's our flatted 3rd. And we're going to resolve this to that F major 7th that we used at the beginning of the tune. 5, 5, open, open. So here's our last little line, and it's all right to put a little retard in here and let it slow down a little bit as we go. It's going to sound like this. As always, if you'd like to print these tabs, they're available by becoming one of my Patreon members for as little as $3 a month, where we do an arrangement like this every single month, as well as analyzing and learning tunes each and every week, along with new techniques focused primarily on the ukulele, but sometimes we hop over to some guitar and tenor guitar things as well. Thank you so much for joining me, and I'll see y'all soon.